almost all of us are here. So welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. I would like to welcome you to this first online workshop of the EMEcs project on digital technologies for safe and regular employment in the construction sector. Just to mention quickly, the EMEcs project is a project which aims to analyze the effects of the pandemic and of the measures adopted by member states' government on posted workers in the construction sector while posting. I would like to also inform you on a few technicalities for this meeting. Of course, this meeting is recorded, and I would also like to, of course, flag you that if you have would like to make questions or, of course, express you have anything to say, you can do that in the chat. Also, use the function raise your hand. So, without further ado, I think we can start with the workshop, and I would like to give the floor to the AP director, Alexandra Kajinska, for the introduction. So, Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe, and good afternoon, and thanks to all participants, speakers, and EMEcs project partners, of course, for joining us at the first EMEcs online workshop today. As Giuseppe mentioned, my name is Alexandra, and I'm the Executive Director of the European Association of Paritarian Institutions. Some words about my organization. AIP is a Brussels-based advocacy organization which represents social protection institutions which are established and managed on joint basis between employers and trade union organizations within the framework of collective agreements. And we represent several important types of social protection providers to the European institutions in Brussels, as European coordinated retirement schemes, occupational pension funds, healthcare funds, health and safety funds, and paid holiday schemes, which are, of course, typical also for the construction sector. Our core objective in Brussels is to represent our members' values and interests at the level of both European and international institutions. And construction has been always one of the most relevant sectors represented in AIP, as there are several social protection institutions working at national level that are managed on paritarian basis within the construction sector, operating pension plans, paid holidays, health and safety at work schemes, and so on, specifically in the construction sector. For this reason, in AIP, we have a dedicated working group focusing on the construction sector, which takes part in several activities and projects which also see the involvement of paritarian institutions active in this sector. On the topic of today, posted workers are a vulnerable category of workers, which often is not covered sufficiently by social protection schemes for various reasons. For example, lack of transparency on employment contracts, the cross-border nature of the employment or the job itself, or the lack of clarity between the legal responsibility of hosting or the sending country. As AIP, we strongly believe in the mission of the EMEcs project to understand the weaknesses of social protection systems during the pandemic, which showed also that there is a big need to reinforce the operation of existing social protection institutions. And because of this, for us, it's a priority to ensure that, and that would definitely provide for or ensure further a more effective and resilient social protection system at national level and guarantee also fair and safer conditions of employment in the future. For these reasons, AIP is happy to be part of the EMEcs project consortium together with the national paritarian institutions and social partners. And today's workshop aims to address the current push towards digitalization, which was accelerated by the pandemic, and to see if this can strengthen further prevention and safety at work, including activities to combat also irregular work. And I think my colleague Giuseppe will also share the program now. Probably you have already seen. The first part of the event would be a tour of presentations of digital tools developed at national level in 6 member states to foster safe and regular employment in the construction sites. And this will be then followed by a panel discussion with EU and national authorities on future opportunities brought by digitalization trends. And we thank all the speakers, of course, for their contributions to the program today. I will hope that, of course, you would enjoy the program and the discussions and that you would find them insightful. Thanks again, and I give the floor back to my colleague Giuseppe.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. And yes, we can then start now with, as Alexandra mentioned, thank you very much, with this first section of the workshop. So we will see presentations from of digital tools developed at national, at member states level, and then we will have a second session with a panel of EU authorities and national authorities as well, commenting on these tools. We will have the presentation of tools from 6 European countries, namely Germany, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Romania. And I think we can start with the German one. So I'm very happy to give the floor to introduce you Mr. Dana Schaefer, Director of the International Department of the German Paritarian Institution providing social protection to workers in the construction sector, SOCABAU. Dana, the floor is yours. I'm sharing now your presentation. Just 1 second.
Thanks a lot, Giuseppe. And also a warm welcome to all EMEcs partners and to all guests and to this session. I'm very happy to present you some of our German and national example for digital tools. As Giuseppe said, my name is Dana Schaefer and I'm the head of the posting scheme in the German construction industry. We are responsible for all posted workers and posting companies to Germany. We are operating in 14 languages and we need to go back to yes, to the first slide, and then I have the chance to start to introduce you a tool that is very crucial for the success of the posting scheme in Germany. It's the cooperation with the customs authorities in Germany. And on the next slide, we will see again. I think you have to, yes, okay, go ahead. Okay, we need to go back again to the basics of the posting. It's always the posting directive and the necessity to include all posted workers in the minimum working conditions. For SOCABAU, it is of course most relevant to look at the minimum paid annual holidays and the registration. How do we know whether someone is posted to Germany or not? The registration is necessary at the custom authorities, which is in German the Zoll. You see it. You see the logo down at the slide, and at SOCABAU we also are in a strong exchange with the custom authorities. We have some small videos to explain the registration at SOCABAU and also the necessary registration at the Zoll, at the custom authorities. And on the next slide, if you would push, you see a small video that explains the necessity.
Ensures that foreign construction businesses that post trade employees to German building sites also meet the minimum employment conditions. Because Germany implements the European Posting of Workers Directive, foreign employers also have to pay the German construction minimum wages and grant leave entitlements and leave pay that apply in Germany.
Thanks, Giuseppe. We will see a further part of the video in a little later. Now, on the next slide, we see again, you have to push again. There are some things flying into this. Yes, okay. We see again the declaration of posting. On the left-hand side of the presentation, you see it, how it was just in the beginning. You had to fill in a form with necessary information on the employer, on the activities, for example, the duration and the addresses of the construction site and also further information. But it was necessary to identify the employer and the posting itself. On the next page, you already see that there's the names and the duration of the posting. All these data are, on the one hand, necessary to identify the worker and to identify also the employer, but it's not an unanimous registration identity thing that is restricting the free movement of services on the other end. So the information that are necessary, they are well balanced between free movement of services and necessary identification marks. We, for example, do not have any social ID number or personal identity number of the worker to identify that it is that special worker. For example, we only have the name, the surname, and the date of birth. And also for the employer, we, for example, do not have the identification in the trade register or something like this. It's only also address, the name, and some responsible acting person, for example. Yes, there are some more things flying. It's a bit difficult to have these presentations split. The next slide shows you the further development. We do not have any paperworks anymore. The custom authorities started a registration portal. On the top link, the blue one you see, this is the internet link to enter the registration portal. To enter this internet page, you see then further down. The registration is possible in 9 languages, and you see it's also, for example, Cyrillic languages. There, it is not necessary to fill in all the papers by hand and to fax it or to send it via post, but it's necessary to register once. There's an exemption for the temporary agencies. They can even only fill in the form, and there is a daily exchange. We have a daily exchange with the custom authorities that has about 180,000 declarations per year that are transmitted from the custom authorities to Sokabau, which is about 1,000 per day. There's one charge transmitted in the mornings and one in the afternoon. These data are used to see or to give the employers that are posting workers to Germany into the construction sites the chance to register also with Sokabau, which is an obligation, and in case they are not aware of these obligations, you have the chance to inform them that they have to register concerning the, as far as leave entitlements are concerned, with Sokabau. On the next slide, we have the second part of the small video that explains how the worker is registering with Sokabau, and I would like you to, Giuseppe, to push.
The leave procedure during posting works as follows. Before construction employment is taken up, the employer registers with Sokabau. Sokabau then verifies the employer's obligation to be included in the scheme and provides it with its employer number. The employer then completes the necessary forms and sends them to Sokabau. All the data is registered there. The employer now transmits an electronic monthly report for each calendar month and pays the contributions due. Sokabau verifies this and calculates the employee's leave entitlements. If all conditions are met, Sokabau will refund paid leave and inform both parties about their current account balances.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for sharing this with us. So you see, this is the process, how registration works online now, how we use digital tools to overcome borders and to make information fast available and also to exchange information. The applications we are using, as you can see, are quite complex. There is a complex system of data exchange. For example, we just had a look on the exchange of Sokabau and the custom authorities, but also there is an exchange going from Sokabau to the custom authorities. There are data available via a special portal on the workers, on the payments, whether they met their declarations, whether they met their leave entitlements, etc. This again is necessary for the custom authorities because they are responsible to check the working conditions on the construction site. So they need to know what is declared at Sokabau or what is declared at other institutions. And therefore we have a quite complex system. We are right now also improving the digital tools to register with Sokabau again. So we do a long process of digitalization to make all the registration much more easy, and also the monthly reporting of gross wages and the monthly reporting of leaves and leave entitlements is going to be much more easy for employers and also for workers to see what is how much days of leave entitlement do I still have, or what amount of money can I apply for if I do not if I'm not in the position to take the leave as leave in forms of free time and payment. If you go in the next slide, again, we see the figures. In general, there are about 85,000 blue-collar workers posted to Germany and approximately 4,400 companies posting out of more than 15 countries, European countries, usually about 20 European countries. That the background of Sokabau is, of course, securing the equal labor conditions and also competition standards, the effective assessment of the company's adherence of collective agreed minimum wages, and also it is necessary to support the German labor and custom authorities. Therefore, we use these digital tools, and if there are any questions, please go ahead. I thank you for listening to me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dana. Just stop sharing the screen. Thank you very much. That was very, very interesting for us, especially this exchange of information and this database between Sokabau and also the German Customs Service. We move now to the next presentation. I think we can have, before we move to the next presentation, a quick question and answer session at the end of the whole presentations. So yeah, we don't interrupt the flow of presentations. So I'm happy to give the floor now to Mr. Mark Van Engelen, Director General at Constructive, the Belgian paritarian institutions providing social protection to construction workers in Belgium, as I mentioned, who will present the tool Constru Badge. I will leave the floor then to you, Mark, and I will share the screen with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe, and good afternoon to all of you. Perhaps before starting my presentation, I think it's important to know that in Belgium, we have a big advantage to have a unique declaration system on national social office level. All employers, whether they be foreign or internal, whether they're Belgian or foreign, have to do declarations to the National Office of Social Security each time when they engage construction worker or when they are planning to post a foreign worker to Belgium. That's essential to the system I'm going to expose to you now, because those data, even though they are made or conserved at a higher level, the National Office of Social Security, they are also transmitted to all interested parties who can prove that they have a legal interest in receiving those data. And one of those parties is our Paritarian Fund, who has been charged by the social partners to collect those data, trade those data, and do certain activities in order to combat social fraud. Social fraud not limited to fraudulent schemes with posted workers, but also on a national level. We have an intensive data mining activity, but I'm not going to about that now. I'm going to show you what we are doing in the field of reliable, intelligent identification of employed construction workers in our industry. We have since 2013, what we call the Constru Badge, which is an intelligent device based on official data that we issue in a highly automated process. I'm going to show to you that later on, because we believe that reliable, unique identification of workers and their employers is essential in order to detect fraudulent schemes. Especially in the construction industry, where there are a multitude of construction sites, a multitude of main contractors, subcontractors, which are often present at the same construction site. We have this practice in Belgium since over 25 years. We tried to do the reliable identification of construction workers and their employers. In the beginning, it was a simple printed card which mentioned the employer and his worker, and which gave information about the start of the contractual relation between those two. Since 2013, we have a more intelligent and a more digital system. We have indeed a construction card, which is not only mentioning the relationship between the worker, his employer, but also giving the official photograph picture of that construction worker, and which contains an electronic chip with the possibility to add other information in an encrypted way. Perhaps to give you some numbers, Giuseppe, if you can go to the next slide, please. For instance, in 2021, we have issued over 200,000 cards for Belgian workers employed by Belgian construction companies. And sadly enough, only 2,000 cards for foreign workers. Why do I say sadly enough? Because we have information about the total number, which is much more important. Even if you are a small country, compared to, for instance, Germany, we had the explanation of Dana Schäfer. She said 85,000 blue-collar workers posted in Germany. We have almost similar numbers in Belgium in the construction. Near 70,000 posted workers, but only 2,000 for the time being have asked to get the Constru Badge. I specifically say for the time being, because we are trying to make the construction badge mandatory for all workers present on Belgian construction. As I said, it's an intelligent device, picture from an authentic source, the National Register, a card which contains a chip and an RFID antenna, so it can be used in electronic registration schemes. And there are actually over 20 companies which use the data contained in the chip of construction badge to do registration of presence on the construction site, time of arrival, and so on. Next slide, please. Okay. Fully automated production process. As I said before, we have a very comfortable situation in Belgium where there is a unique declaration on a higher level, and that information is shared with all interested parties far as they can prove a legal interest. We automatically receive those data and we treat them in a very highly efficient process, which results in the issuance of the device, the construction badge, in a period of maximum 48 hours between the moment the declaration has been done in the network of Social Security and the time when that personalized construction badge is posted and delivered to the construction worker. It's a highly secured card. It's, I dare say, almost impossible to falsify. We use different techniques to prevent counterfeiting of the card. The secure printing, invisible inks, the chip in itself has protected data which can prove or not that is an original card. And as it is a highly automated process, we are able to do it on a very cost-efficient way. The real issuance of the card for the total of the construction worker is less than 20 euro a year per worker. Now, how does the card look like? Next slide. Giuseppe, can you get the slide? Thank you. That's how the card looks from the outside. So you got the employer name, the worker name, the official identification, because we have unique identification for persons in Belgium. The employer identification, which is the VAT number. We have a unique card number, a barcode, which contains most of the data, the official picture, and a validity period. Construction badge is valid for most 1 year, but each time that the relationship between employer and worker changes, person goes to another company, he receives automatically a new construction badge, since there has to be an official declaration in the network of Social Security. You can go to the next slide, please. Electronic chip. So this is a personalized card, which contains a chip with personalized information. Several files are used, and we can add up to 7 other applications. For instance, safety certificates, vocational training, which is relevant, driver's license, even if he should be authorized to do so, medical data which might be relevant. For instance, if there is an accident on a construction site, it might be useful to have medical information about the worker that is implied in that. Next slide, please. This is in a very schematic way the process which is followed. On the left side, you see National Social Security Office, which is the starting point. All declarations are done on the portal of the National Social Security Office, whether they be Limosa for posted workers, Dimona DMFA for Belgian construction workers. We get information about the employers. We have information from on the right side, the National Register, the register of the electronic ID card. And all that information is automatically collected once we receive starting trigger, the declaration of Limosa or Limona saying, today Mark van Engelen has started working for construction. At that time, our back office system automatically questions the Home Affairs Office and collects all data, which is automatically sent to a card printing company, where in a highly secured environment, those cards are produced and sent automatically to the highly secured indeed, physically secured. We have our own hologram developed. We have pure ink technique, have background printed production, and so on, several techniques. Also a logical protection by the unique ID-based encryption that's used to mention data on the chip. Now, that's the positive side of our story. And we go to the next slide. We have had some problems with European Commission. Who is present can elaborate probably more about that. But the European Commission has questioned the Belgian government about this, stating that it might possibly be an obstruction of free circulation of persons or services in the European Union. What were the objections or the questions of the European Commission? Your communication about the concept is ambiguous. On the one hand, you seem to state that it is mandatory, but when we look on the legal level, it is not yet, because the collective agreement has not yet been approved. Other question of the European Commission was, there seems to be a difference in validity. Consti badge of a posted worker, not the same validity as the consti badge of a Belgian. Can you tell us more about it? We had in the issuance process foreseen that the delivery address for a posted worker would be in Belgium. In our opinion, it made no sense to produce a card, a badge. I seem to have lost connection. Do you still hear me? Yes? Okay, I'm going to continue. So in our opinion, it made no sense to send a card of a Polish worker to Poland, because most likely he would already be in Belgium when the card would be issued. That's the reason why we said, give us any delivery address, whether it be the address of an hotel, of a contractor, of a main contractor, of whatever. In Belgium, we will send the card so that you can get it easily. European Commission had questions about that. And then we have had an issue about the payment of the consti badge for the Belgian construction workers. The cost was supported by general cotisation they had to pay, contribution they had to pay to our organization. since posting companies did not have to pay that contribution, we had to ask for a specific payment of €20 per concept batch. So quite some questions. We have, I think, given a sufficient answer to most of them. And we said to the Commission, to the European Commission, anyhow, if needed, we are willing to change certain minor aspects of our concept batch. If you prefer that the batch can be sent to Poland, sure, we will send it to Poland. If you seem to claim that there is a difference in validity, we will prove you that there is no difference in validity. And for the time being, we have answer to all those questions, and perhaps you can go to the last slide. Today, after providing all that additional information to the European Commission, we have not yet received a formal response, which is good, because we have been told that if there would still be much objection to the system of the concept batch, that most likely we would have received a formal procedure within 2 months, which is not the case. We have been told informally, so cannot be certainly stated, but we have been informed that the European Commission does not wish to undertake further legal action. And more, that it has been confirmed that the concept batch is a justified tool, a justified means to fight against social fraud. But anyhow, our social partners are willing to modify certain modalities of the concept batch, and that will be done quite soon. We are undertaking, social partners are undertaking, I think, all necessary action to make it possible that the concept batch becomes a mandatory system and should be asked and obtained by every construction worker present on Belgian construction sites. So we are quite confident that with the small modifications that social partners will bring to the system beginning 2023, that we will have a European Commission proof tool, which I think offers the possibility to be even more performant and gives us the possibility to check on basis of official data whether a construction worker has been officially declared and may be present on our construction sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was a very interesting presentation. As mentioned before, we keep possible questions for later. We move on with the next presentation, and I'm happy to give the floor to Joana Marques, who is a researcher at the University of Lisbon Institute. Please, Joana.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Can you share my presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Going now.
So good afternoon, everyone. So like the previous presentations, in Portugal, we also have many constraints and challenges raised by posting. So at the very different levels, at the level of companies, labor authorities, and most importantly, workers. And in the scope of EMEcs project, it's not this one, it's the one I sent you this morning, Giuseppe. But as I was saying, in the scope of EMEcs project, we have tried to research.
Because I think I didn't receive your presentation this morning.
I sent you just now.
Perfect.
Or I can share if you want.
Okay.
I can share my screen. Yes. I'm not allowed to share. Okay. Sorry. Can you see it now?
We can see it perfectly. Thank you, Jana.
So in our case, we have been trying to look into these different digital tools, but as outsiders. So it's different from the previous presentations that are more insiders. This was not a very easy task to reach these digital tools from Portugal. And we decided to bring here one tool from public authority and another from a private tool. So the first tool that we would like to present is Sinai database, which is our national information system for the inspection activity, and which is managed by ACT, our labor inspectorate. So this is a tool used by labor inspectors, which builds on administrative declarations like data from national declarations on posting and also on inspection activities. It covers all sectors of the economic activity of the private sector and not just construction. So this database is structured by company with all information on the company, the name, address, the economic activity, tax ID and social security, information on the premises, so where information is collected on risk assessment for each premise, risks concerning occupational health and safety, history of inspections, also information on workers and on accidents reported. So the database includes, for what interests us in this project, data on the inspections held, so occupational accidents inquiry, industrial licensing, authorization inspections, and so on, and also specific information on posting, on the employer, and then on the name of the workers posted per category, and the sending information on the sending company and on the host companies. We have conducted this analysis on this database, and our findings suggest that the overall strengths is that this is a system that allows reading and cross-checking information, and to organize inspections, to manage follow-up actions, to document visits and checklists, to register the inspection visits, to produce statistical reports, also to register complaints about violations, and register all kinds of inspection procedures. But there are also many weaknesses that have been reported. The most important one is that the software is considered very outdated right now. It has quite some years now. And so the database is heavy and difficult to update without real-time data. And also in the specific case of posting, where data depends on the communication by companies, there is still some gaps, since not all companies are providing the required declarations. In addition, there is also the issue of posting to Portugal, which only more recently has been, as ACT has started collecting data. So only after the transposition of the enforcement directive. So there is still a lack of data on posting to Portugal. So the improvements proposed to SINAI, according to the data we gathered, are based on the need to cross-checking of data with other public authorities that also collect data on posting, specifically the Social Security, but also the tax authorities and immigration authorities. We also think that for research purposes, it is recommended that also a more broad collection and public provision of socio-demographic data, aggregated data on posting on age, gender, education, professional categories, so that we can have a more comprehensive knowledge of this reality in Portugal. The second database that we would like to briefly present is the GES Plano platform, which is the integrated management of internal and external resources. It is managed by a private company, and it is used. It has been developed targeting construction companies to monitor and control procedures and employment relationships along the supply chain. So it allows to ensure compliance with legal requirements, like the identification of workers on site and their legal documentation, and control of access by workers and associated risks, entries, exits, or also more specific information like the use of chemical products at the site. It also allows the management of worker-specific qualifications, like control and check that workers are qualified to carry out their functions and that they are qualified to use the equipment and tools. It allows the management of legal and compulsory documentation, controlling the documents conformity of service providers, for instance, and the management of the access control, the access to the premises through different technologies, so adapting flexibility to each company's needs. So this tool is organized in different modules, which may be adjusted to the company's needs. And it is possible to develop specific models according to the needs of each company or each undertaking. It is developed so that everything is paper-free, using digital devices, and is considered to be adequate both for public and private organizations, and as well as for independent workers. It also includes a tool or module to identify and collect information on each worker, like issues concerning security at work. So this is not a specific tool for posting, but given its modular structure and its tailor-made approach, we believe that improvements could be proposed based on the possibility of including a more specific module on posting, also considering our previous findings on the needs and constraints felt by companies, and also according to our future recommendations by this project. and also perhaps the possibility of including tools to monitor workers' living conditions, which we also have identified in previous research that is a particular critical issue within posting. So that's it from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joanna, to presenting these two very relevant tools, the Sinai and Guest Plano, developed at Portuguese level. I'm moving now to another example. We go to Italy, and I'm happy to give the floor to Mr. Gazman Lanai, who is an expert of occupational health and safety at the Professional Institute of Construction Workers in Bologna. Please, Gazman, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I share the screen you have? Okay.
Yeah, you should be.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. It is still not habilitated. Can you please check?
Yeah, I'm checking. Just 1 second.
Okay. Now, okay. Here it is, I think. Yes.
We can see it.
Do you see it? Okay. Perfect.
Thank you very much, Gazman.
Well, yes, I'd like to stress another kind of instrument that we have in Italy, not in all Italy, but anyway, in most part of the national territory, and specifically in Bologna, where I live and work, at the Vet Institute of Bologna. That is also an institution that deals with safety and health in the building sector. And the instrument is what we call preliminary notification. I saw the other interventions, and it's something different because it has to do specifically with the safety issues in the building sector. But as I'm going to try to explain it better after, it is also a very good instrument, a digital instrument also, that helps to understand and to crossing other data also and confronting them. It can be really useful to tackle also a lot of problems, not only about the safety, but also about other questions about the illegal work and irregular work and other problems, other issues about the regularity and also the mutual funds of building sector. Well, let's see first what the preliminary notification is a declaration that the client, private or public client, has a mandatory is a mandatory requirement that had to be fulfilled, as I said before, by a private or public client or by the safety coordinator normally, and is a notice that is used to communicate to the competent bodies the details of the construction site and to say, okay, I'm going to start a new working place and also an economic activity in a building site, and this notification has to be the first thing that you have to prepare and to transmit, right, to say that you are beginning a new activity. Well, what is it used for? The public bodies that have to carry the control and surveillance activities and construction sites have to use this data to program and to planify their inspection visits. So the main purpose of the notification is to alert the inspection authorities of the presence of the building sites, where we know maybe also in the other countries, like your countries, there are always the greatest criticalities about the risks and the accidents of work. And also this kind of notification, preliminary notification, is used by organisms like ours that also can carry out and support the enterprises and the workers also in the construction sites, organizing visits and controls that are not for punishing someone, but for helping the enterprises and the workers to do better and to improve the safety conditions in the building sites. Preliminary notification is a kind of a small group of data that gives the location of the construction, the date and the time of duration of the works, the type, the typology of the plant interventions, who is the client, who are the companies that are involved, or the self-employed workers, etc. We can see better. You see in the images here the PDF that comes out from the platform when you insert the data and can print it. And according to the national law, the notification must contain the following information: the date estimated of the commencement. This document has always to be done and to be prepared and transmitted before opening the building site and beginning the works. And the other data that you see are building site address, the client data, the proposal nature of the work, who is the project manager and the safety and health coordinator. That is always a different professional figure in the building sector. The estimated duration and of the work in time, and the maximum number of workers of the also of the business that are involved in the whole period that the building site will work and will be on, and then the estimated total amount of works also. And the most important thing that deals a little bit with our theme, or with our issue of this meeting, is the identification, the tax code, the VAT number, and other data about the companies that are working in that building site. And specifically, what I was telling before, the preliminary notification is something that is national. You are obliged to do it based on a national law. And in the Emilia-Romagna region, as in other regions in Italy, there is an information system that is called SICO, that means Construction Information System, and it has been digitalized. And as once this kind of communication was on paper in a typical old way, now it can be done completely online, and is a computerized system, a procedure that allows the clients and also the safety coordinators to fulfill what the platform needs and asks, and to have the result, having it also in a PDF. And it has also to be put on the building site enter. In every place in Italy where there is a construction activity, has to be something that says what there is inside. And one of the documents that have to be put at the entrance of the building site is the preliminary notification. And of course, it's a platform. It's easy to be used because it can be used by the clients that have the obligation from the point of view of the norms of the legal procedures, and also for the professionals that can do the same thing for their clients, but the result is always the same. And for more, the SICO data remains, of course, available to customers, to technicians, and they can use it as to produce specific lists, or to also send changes and updates and modify the notification as the building site changes, and maybe there are changes also of the companies that are dealing with and that are involved in the same place. Well, something else that we do with this data, I mean, we are a safety and health organization. As I told before, we try to help the enterprises, the building enterprises and the workers to do better. And one of our duties is to analyze the data from the preliminary notifications. And as you see here, one of the things we do is to understand how the building sector is going, how much work is being done. For example, here you see three different kind of analysis we do: the total number of construction sites that are open in a certain period, the total amount of the works planned for the new construction sites, and also the total number of workers involved. Of course, it is always an estimation because it's something done before opening and doing the works in the building site. But it has really a good value, and it is really valid to understand where and how the sector is going on, and if the total field of construction field is doing better or not in time. And also in relation with this, we go and cross the other data that has to do with the safety and with the accidents at work. And this allows us to understand where are the weak points, as we see that often increasing the job in the building sector also brings together also a growing of the accidents at work. And this can be really useful to understand where are the weak points and what happens exactly in the sector, and how to plan intervention policies, improvement interventions, and do better what we have to do about the safety. One of the characteristics of the ecosystems, as you see here in the slide, is the possibility to highlight different discrepancies between the declared data and the daily reality of the construction sites. That, as we know, often is different. Bringing in this way, bringing out irregular situations, undeclared work, and the avoidance of the obligations that the enterprises have towards the building mutual funds. The red thing that I have underlined in the slide, you see, is the inscription to the building mutual funds. And for every enterprise that is involved in that building site, we have the data, and we can see and verify if they are or not inscribed in the building mutual fund. That is an obligation for the building companies in Italy. And this is another good instrument to understand and to make it coming out of all the irregular work, or sometimes also illegal work. Because I just to close my short intervention, just this morning I had an occasion, something similar. Someone called at us asking about a building site where a company is working, and it's a case, it's not something that happens every day, but the building is the house of the owner of the employer, and there is not a preliminary notification. That means this is the first alert, the first red light that comes out and says, attention, because there is something that is not right, is not done as it has to be done. And in this case, they don't have a safety coordinator, for example. And it's the beginning of a process that can help us to understand if there are critical situations and sometimes also illegal situations, and we can plan then our interventions in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gazmend, and also for providing us not only with the Italian perspective, but also with a perspective of how digital tools can strengthen health and safety at work. We can move now to the fifth case. I'm happy to give, we move to Romania actually, happy to give the floor to Miss Andrea Iliescu from the Social House of Builders.
Thank you, Giuseppe.
Ms. Andrea, the floor is yours. I'm going to share the screen with your, or if you prefer, I leave it to you.
I can do it if it's okay with you.
Sure.
But now
that we promote you to co-host, so you can share the presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Perfectly.
Thank you. Now, from Romania, we've selected digital tool that is from the Labor Inspectorate, for the Romanian Labor Inspectorate, and the presentation is made together with the Eastern Marketing Insights, is the research companies that represent us in the research activities in the EMEcs project. As for the tool itself, its name is the registry, the general registry of the employees.
Sorry, Andrea, we
Yes?
cannot see your presentation at the moment.
You cannot see it?
No.
Now? How about now?
Yeah. Now, yes.
Now, yes?
Thank you very much, Andrea. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay. Now it's okay? Okay. So the general registry of the employees is, as a type of data analysis, a matching tool used by the Labor Inspectorate and building on administrative declarations. And the responsible body, as I've mentioned before, is the Romanian Labor Inspectorate. As for the types of data, the areas covered by Regis, there are only records from the individual employment contracts. No information regarding daily workers or self-employed, and also includes information on posted workers to Romania as per national declaration tool introduced pursuant to the Enforcement Directive. As for the types of data that are registered in Revisal, they are, for instance, the employer's ID. This means the name, the registration code, the fiscal code, the social address, the legal representative name, and so on. Also, the employee's ID meaning name, personal identification number, citizenship, country of origin, so on. Also, the starting and the ending date of posting, the ID of the sending and the host employer, the nature of the activity the employee is posted for, the job title, the labor contract type, duration, and the working time. Also, data of labor contracts conclusion, entering into force and termination, the state where the employee is posted to, and the remuneration, of course. So the scope of the data is to allow the Labor Inspectorate to check for possible irregularities and to plan inspection. And also it allows it to, when addressed by foreign partners within EU countries, to check various aspects regarding workers posted from Romania, and also the opposite. So the aims of the tool practically are to ensure regularity of employment within the national economy, and also to support labor inspection, its role as national liaison office on posting of workers. How Regis supports identification of risk of misconduct is the main tool used by Inspectorate when notified about possible irregularities, because it can check if there are possible reclamation for the employer. Also, very important, supports joint control activities with the fiscal authorities, which by comparing info from their databases, they can better work together to limit undeclared and unreported work. Also allows the Labor Inspectorate to establish its own control plan, and as mentioned before, supports the Labor Inspectorate's activity as a national liaison office on posting. Because as you've seen, it is useful to answer queries from authorities of host countries about posted workers, but doesn't have any specific approaches regarding identification of risks of irregularities for posted workers, and no cooperation with the National House of Public Pension on the release or denial of the A1 forms, and no info regarding accommodation, actual payment of social security contributions or other elements listed under Articles 4, paragraph 2 and 3 of the Enforcement Directive. As for the role of human making decision to identify the risks of misconduct, the human decision making plays the primary role to identify the risks, to correct the software, and also to confirm the presence of irregularities. As for overall strength, the REGIS allows a good general overview of the labor contracts and their status across national economy. It is a good support tool for monitoring and controlling, having a lot of data. And so a decrease of undeclared work has been reported thanks to it lately. Also allows fast and at distance analysis and checks for various complaints, and allows monitoring of general info regarding posting gas for our project, thanks to the above mentioned records stored about posting from or to Romania. As for weaknesses, overall weaknesses, it demands supplementary analytical skills and export towards other informatic tools for more complex analysis. Also, employees do not have yet direct access to their records. They have to pass through the employer representatives for that. And access by third parties is limited because other state institutions' databases are not interconnected, and no dedicated link with registers holding info on company activities relevant for posting purposes. And though the Romanian institutions have access to REGIS, they haven't used it yet. As for proposed improvements, a new type of data should be defined and collected, like I don't know, employee skills, data on medical leave, the actual work schedule, and also it is really necessary an interconnection with other administrative databases, as foreseen by the REGIS Online project, in particular with data on the unemployment status from the National Employment Agency, on the actual paid social benefits from the Ministry of Finance, on the posted workers from the D11 forms from the National Agency for Fiscal Administration, containing all the data on mandatory contributions, salary taxes, and so on for all the employers, for all the employees, and posted workers from the A1 forms from the National House of Public Pensions. The REGIS Online project is funded through the National Plan from Recovery and Resilience and aims to digitize by December 2024 the Labor Inspectorate's relationship with the employers. And it is very important because it will allow from 2025, from January, online access for every employee at their records in the register. The legal framework is already in place, and this year the labor code has been modified for that, but the digital tool is not strong enough yet to support online access for every employee. And so only from 2025, with a username and a password, every employee will be able to check the records, its own records in REGIS. Also, it will ensure access by public authorities and institutions to the registered data at an API level. Thank you. That's all from me.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Andrea. Really insightful. And so I would now move directly to last presentation of today. So just a second. Yeah, we move now to last presentation, and I'm happy to give the floor to Marta Heviafano and also Joaquín Aurelio Rodriguez from Fundación Laboral de la Construcción. So, as you could understand from the name of the association, is a Spanish association, and you will see this Spanish digital tool.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Are you going to share the presentation for us, or do you want me to do it?
As you prefer. You want me to share the screen?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Just a second.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Well, I'm going to put the voice of this presentation, but we collaborate in this, trying to explain you our Spanish cases concerning digital tools to prevent accidents at construction sites. As you will see, there have some similarities to the previous interventions of Gatman and also Mr. Van Engelen from Constructive, because we are going to speak about the construction part and also something similar to the preliminary notifications and the ecosystem. So we are on the same way, more or less. So the Spanish digital tools that we are going to present are the result of the subcontracting law that it was published in 2006 to control contracting and subcontracting in construction works in Spain. Why this law? At the time, companies without workers were acting as intermediates without any kind of contribution, neither workers nor machinery, just subcontracting to other companies. These actions, unfortunately, increased the accident rate in the sector and also aggravated the safety conditions of the workers on construction sites. Besides, the subcontracting chain was also unknown, and it was therefore difficult to establish responsibilities. So to address these weaknesses in the system, the law was oriented mainly towards companies, workers, and work sites. And concerning construction companies, the law say that they must justify that they have the material and human resources necessary for the execution of the work. So the result is the creation of the Register of Accredited Companies, named in Spanish REA, R-E-A. This is going to be our first tool. The second one, the law also addresses construction workers. They must have a minimum OHS, before just the previous slide, Giuseppe, just finishing. So the workers, or the law also addresses workers being mandatory just to have a minimum OHS training. And so it was, as a result, the TPC, the Construction Professional Card, was created. And finally, concerning work sites, the law also say that it must be a registered book, necessary to have a registered book in the construction sites, where the information of all the companies and self-employed workers involved in the work were recorded. So it was created a subcontracting book at a national initiative. And there is a regional initiative here in Asturias. We are in the north of Spain. And to monitor this book, this subcontracting book, we had created a paritarian commission to observe the occupational health and safety, but also the contracting, the hiring in the construction companies, working in cooperation with the regional labor authority. Now, yes, Giuseppe, thank you very much. Next is, okay, this is the REA. The REA, just in a few words, is managed by the Ministry of Labor, Any contracting or subcontracting process for the execution of construction activities must be registered in this platform. Demolition, construction, rehabilitation, all the activities for the construction sector. Each autonomous community is responsible for its own REA, but all of them are interconnected, so the registration is valid throughout the national territory. Next slide, please. So the aim is to allow construction companies to show its capacity to have its own productive organization to carry out the activity declared. Before starting the works, they must describe in the REA the activity to be developed, premises, facilities, work equipment, machinery. Also, the updated staff, number of workers, occupational qualification, and also accrediting the OHS training they have received. So, as regards to posting, where a foreign company posted workers in Spain to a construction site here in Spain, it must register in the REA platform as long as the duration of the posting exceeds the 8 days. In that case, the law on posting will be taken into account, and the first notification of the posting should be complemented with this registration in the REA. Next slide, please, Giuseppe. And this is the second tool. It's kind of similar of the construct batch. Is our TPC. It is a physical card also linked to the accreditation of occupational health and safety training, and all workers in the construction sector can have it here in Spain. This card includes other aspects also, such as the workers' experience in the sector, the professional qualifications, and any other training received, as well as medical certificates. As already I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, was created as a result of the subcontracting law, on which it was called on collective agreement to regulate a system of accreditation of a specific OHS training. So through the construction general agreement, the social partners implemented the TPC based on 3 basic pillars: the training content, on OHS per occupation and trade in the construction sector, the homologation of the training entities that give this training, and the TPC management itself, issued by the Fundación Laboral de la Construcción, but at state level, which is the joint body that manages the national database, the core of the initiative. The next slide, Giuseppe, please. Thank you. So this is how the TPC system works. The worker makes the request and submits to FLC the requirements documentation accrediting their compulsory OHS training, and so on. And information is saved in this national database. The process of verification and validation of requests begins, and to those that meet the conditions, start the printing of cards and registration of users. So since the worker is owner of the TPC, she can demand to the database the issuance of certificates, file data reports, and update all this information. Next slide, please, Giuseppe. So this is the TPC website, estrabajoenconstruccion.com. It has this user area for the worker, but also companies can check the veracity of the occupational health and safety training diplomas for both their own workers and also for the subcontractors. Next slide, please, Giuseppe. So this is our third and last but not least tool, named Compruebas. Compruebas is a similar initiative as the preliminary notification and the ecosystem presented by government, kind of. It's a commission, Compruebas is a commission that was created by the social partners in the construction sector here in Asturias. It's a regional level, this initiative. Its mission is not only to control the monitoring of health and safety conditions, but also the contracting of work. And it was in coordination with the Regional Labour and Social Security Inspectorate by signed agreement. The Commission, through its 8 regional delegates, for appointed by the trade unions and for appointed by the employers' organizations, works in pair, has power to freely enter in all construction sites and conduct interviews with both workers and employers, not only to supervise the correct adoption of the safety measures, issuing also recommendations for corrective actions if needed, but also to check the subcontracting book and detect possible irregularities in contracting, with a special focus on bogus self-employment in Asturian construction sites. Next slide, Giuseppe. Thank you. And the procedure of Copruebas at a glance will be that Copruebas receive the communication from the of the project visas provided by the associations of quantity surveyors. It also received the communication of the opening of the work site provided by the Labor Inspectorate. It's the preliminary notification, more or less, as Gassman said before. This information is uploaded in the Copruebas app, and a process of geopositioning and location of the work centers starts. So the prevention delegates carry out the visit and record the subcontracting book at the Copruebas app. And on the basis of the information obtained during the daily check-in, the Copruebas Commission informed the regional labor and social security inspectorate once a week if required. And just to end the presentation, I'm on time, you say, okay, I think I'm on time. Yes, the last slide. This evaluating these three tools, as we already did in the frame of EMEcs project, we have identified their opportunities and their advantages, but also the difficulties and improvements that could be made. And it all comes back to the same theme: collaboration and communication. So we would like to end this presentation by visualizing what will the future look like in a collaborative world connected in real time using digital tools. All actors involved in the construction sites, contractors, subcontractors, employed workers, all of them, have to provide data and have to be informed about others. Everyone has a piece of information that they should share with others. We're often dealing with information that is neither accurate nor up to date, which is why we propose the creation of a database where all the information from all the work centers, from the project to the training of the workers, is collected. We should save time in administrative management and give security to all the construction agents. The database would be composed of unique data managed by a validating agent who should work on three things: the accessibility of the data, access to the data by those persons, administration, or agents who have the right to access them, the credibility of the data must be provided by validated and constructed sources, and quality of the data must be accurate, unique, and constantly updated. This system would make management easier for companies, administration, and workers, while it would put a stop to the underground economy and illegal hiring. For example, a worker could inform all those involved in a construction site whether or not he has been paid. It would allow also all companies to have a cloud where they could incorporate all the documentation of the work site, safety plans, project, or the public administration to know the relationships between the different companies involved in a project. In short, a win-win situation for all. That's all. Thank you.
Here I am. Yeah. So stop sharing the screen. Thank you very much, Marta, and Joachim as well. And yeah, we are at the end of this tour of presentations. Maybe before moving to comments and the panel discussion, I would like to check if there are questions from the public. You may write your questions in the chat or also raise your hand if you would like to ask anything to speakers who presented digital tools. If there are no questions at the moment, we will have another Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion, so you can also make your questions later, but you can write in the chat at any time. Before moving to the panel discussion, I would like to flag another EMEcs project activity, which is a survey. Maybe my colleague Feliciano can share the link to fill this survey in the chat. Actually, the survey aims to gather data on advertisement of job information, whether this information actually of job advertisement matches the requirements of the country where actually the worker should work according to the job advertisement post. So there is this survey, and actually the result of this survey will be discussed in a workshop on 17 November from 14 to 16. You can find further information also on this workshop in the EMEcs website. Also, Feliciano will share the EMEcs website link in the chat. Okay, so if there are no comments, we can open the panel discussion. So after the presentation of these tools, now we can see which are the opportunities ahead from digital technologies. And at these proposals, I'm very happy to have here today both a European level representative and a national inspectorate representative, namely Belgium. And I'm happy to introduce you to Mr. Raymond Maes from DG Employment of the European Commission. He's advisor of digitalization and social security. And also Mr. Bart Stalpaert, who is Director General of the Social Intelligence and Investigation Service in Belgium. But Mr. Stalpaert is also wearing a double hat, as he is also co-chair of the European Platform Tackling Undeclared Work of the European Labour Authority. So I'm very happy to have you today. Thank you very much for being here. And maybe as first question, also to break the ice, I would like to ask you, first of all, which are your impressions from today's presentations, and also according to you and your experience, what today are the most useful and relevant aspects of digital tools to ensure safe and regular employment in the construction sector? So maybe I can start giving the floor to Raymond. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. You hear me well?
I hear you well.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for the invitation. First of all, I would like to say that it was very interesting and insightful to have these presentations of six different countries. Maybe just quickly a few words on let's say the angle at which I'm looking in particular at those presentations. As you indicated, Giuseppe, I'm advisor on digitalization of social security coordination. So specifically following our so-called ESPAS project, which is about which is directly linked to social security coordination, but in particular looking at the PDA1 form currently. So something which is quite related, of course, to what we have seen this afternoon, even though the emphasis was here, of course, on the requirements also that are there under the posting directive. However, we have seen also that in the discussions on the so-called ESPAS, quite quickly came up the whole discussion on on the, let's say, other elements to be checked, in particular than, for instance, on working sites. So not only the social security coordination aspects, the PDA1 in this case, but also on the working conditions in general, health and safety at work, for instance, remuneration, and as it was mentioned also in some of the presentations, things that even go beyond that, like, for instance, training, etc. So that discussion came very much also to the fore when we were presenting the ESPAS project, for instance, to the European Parliament. So this has led us also at the European level, at the level of DG Employment in particular, to look further into the so-called labor cards or social IDs. And I think what we have seen this afternoon is very much related to that, and is the presentations that we have seen this afternoon are, on the one hand, I think, a reminder also for ourselves as policymakers to keep taking into account the user perspective, and to keep an open view on the other aspects that need to be looked at, in particular if you look at the inspections. And I'm happy also to see that, for instance, colleagues from the European Labour Authority are attending today's meeting, because this is really something that we need to keep an eye on, of course, with those IT projects. And this is also something I think we saw with the presentations. They're always very complex. And it's important also to focus on what you would call the business case. What do you really want to achieve with a particular IT tool, but not to close your eyes on, let's say, the other needs that exist there. So that being said, we continue working more specifically on ESPAS within the area of social security coordination. However, we have started a broader reflection also on digitalization, in particular in the context of not only social security coordination, but also in the context of mobility. And also our colleagues from the European Labour Authority are helping on that reflection. So just very shortly on the things that were very nicely presented this afternoon. I think it shows the importance to have this kind of exchanges, to learn from each other and to see indeed what works and also where are the challenges, because one of the big risks I see, and basically it's already happening, is that countries or social partners or all those that are involved in digitalization tend to reinvent a bit the wheel on their side without necessarily knowing from each other what is happening. So I think projects like this one are crucial in that regard, to see what is happening and what could be picked up by others. And as you may know, the social partners in the construction sector, they also will further look into that if their project is approved by the European Commission. And we also very much support these efforts to exchange. And first of all, looking at the national situation, but definitely also, and it was mentioned in particular in the presentation by Belgium, also looking at the broader European framework, including the legal framework. I think this is important also because they're also in developing those tools. It's important to stay also within the principles of the functioning of the internal market, for instance. So it's always a balancing, of course, between enforcement and allowing the internal market to function properly. These are just some general first reactions. I will stop here, but happy to continue our discussion.
That was very interesting, Raymond. Thank you very much. You already touched several angles. I would like to touch more into details later. And also, of course, you mentioned something that couldn't be ignored today, which is the ESPAS, is the very important activity that we are following with a lot of attention. So thank you very much. We will touch upon this much into details later. I would ask then the same question to you, Bart.
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's a great honor. I will briefly present myself and my organization. So Bart Stalpaert, former inspector on the field. So I know the practice on the ground. I did myself inspections. I'm also a former advisor of different ministers on tackling social frauds. I did this for more than 10 years. And so I have had a lot of experience in negotiating with social partners. So I'm very pleased to see here a lot of social partners around the table. Because as already Mr. Ma said, it's all about balance, and together with the social inspectors, but also with the social partners, you have to have some impact by using digital tools. So now my office field, it's not the CIA from Belgium, not at all. It's social investigation and investigation services, but in fact we are not conducting ourselves inspections on the ground. So we are a so-called umbrella organization, and we have a strategic approach on tackling social fraud. So a brief introduction. I thought it was very, very inspiring. For me, it was a rich afternoon. The presentation given by the 6 countries, you see the richness in the variety also of the means that they are using in the solutions that they try to set up, and also the evolution that has been seen within the different countries of the different techniques or data using that they have set up. Also already mentioned the involvement of the social partners, but also the private sector. I truly believe this was important. The scope, I believe, from all the 6 countries is related to not only detecting fraud or anomalies, but also related to, of course, to see if the rights are being respected in the broad sense. Rights for the workers, but also for the employers, and also related to safety, the OSH issues. What we also see is the synergies, and it was mentioned, I believe, by Spain, synergies that are set up between those different institutions or corporations or social partners. I believe this is truly an approach that could work, because I see this also, and I'm already relating to the next question about the opportunities. I see this as an opportunity. What we see here today, or what we saw here today, is in fact some kind of best practices that could be an inspiration for the different other countries. And I truly believe that also the Commission and here presented and ELA could play an active role to broaden this approach by giving insight in the different aspects of the different best practices that are existing in the different countries. Of course, there are a lot of challenges. Already mentioned by Mr. Maas, a couple of them, the legal framework. I'm referring to the Belgian case with the social ID card, but also the dependency of the accuracy of the data. By using the digital means, you also have to have the knowledge, the skills, also mentioned by a couple of speakers. You have to have, it's costly. You also have to bear in mind the only once principle, not using the different, by only using one time the information. I think this is also very important. A difficult word, the interoperability between the different data sets, very, very difficult. And then it's related to, of course, also the language. I'm not only talking about English, French, German, and whatever, but also by machine learning. The different machines need to talk to each other. The data need to talk to each other, and this is not that easy as it looks like. But what we saw also is that every institution or partner or country is trying to set up some kind of identification system some kind of red alert mechanism. And I think this is the main challenge for every country. So you need also key elements to set up this identification. Of course, in Belgium, we have ID number, but not all the countries, as we understood today, but of course I already knew it in advance, don't have this kind of information. So they have to do it otherwise. The performance is also very important of the different tools that we are using. There was a country who said, yes, it's slow, our tool that we are using now, it should be modernized and so on. And also what we saw is that everybody is trying to set up a mandatory system, of an obligation, of course, has to be within the boundaries of the legal system, within Europe, free market, and so on. So another challenge, a big challenge for me, is to tackle the undeclared work, because it's very good that we have digital tools, but if you don't add any inputs in your data, you don't have any data, then you're below the radar. So what we saw today is, in fact, I'll compare it a little bit with Lego bricks. Every country is setting up with the means that they have. They are playing with the means that they have, like Lego. And I believe that every country has his own culture, framework, legal framework, organization, but everybody wants to set up a Lego that's working and is being effective on the ground. And I think initiatives like today is very good to learn from each other. So thank you for this. This is my first remarks. Thank you already.
Thank you very much, Bart. It was very interesting to hear. And also happy that you stress this need to have anyway a common ground despite all these all the needs, different needs that member states have, and also the different culture, and then at this point different tools that have been developed according to these needs. And this leads to my first question to you, Raymond. And actually saying that, I would like to ask you, how do you see or the role of these tools and their complementarity with the European agenda, and also considering this point of view, how the European institutions can help the information sharing at cross-border level to help addressing frauds?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. How do I see the role of the EU level on this? I think, and I mentioned that already in my first intervention, we need to be ambitious at the European level, but also at the same time cautious, in the sense that what we have seen in developing IT tools, especially when it comes indeed to IT tools, is that you should not overrush things. There are 27 member states let's say, that have indeed their own needs, their own systems sometimes already in place. So it is not something that can be done with a quick fix. So we need to take it step by step. At the same time, we see already a number of developments that are ongoing, either at national level, but also at European level. The once-only principle was already mentioned by Mr. Stalpaert. We have, of course, also the single digital gateway, for instance, which is being implemented by the member states. And as from the end of next year, all member states, for instance, will have to have a system in place to both deliver and also receive the requests for the PDA1 fully digitally. So these are steps, let's say, that will need to be taken in any event by countries. The other important building block, since we speak about Lego and building blocks, is the whole discussion on the EID, for instance. Since we spoke about identification of workers, of people, the whole discussion on EID, and not only the electronic identity, but also the wallet. Because That's also something that we are looking at with the ESPAS solution. And we have seen now also several presentations that refer to cards, which are still physical cards. But I think also ultimately we would expect the information contained on these cards to find their way into electronic wallets. So these are developments that are already ongoing. And I think our task is, being DG Employment, is to make sure that where those more, let's say, horizontal developments are taking place, is that they duly take into account the requirements coming from our area. And that is to say, indeed, the posting, social security coordination, inspections related to labor law, etc. So as to allow those instruments to be used for those purposes. And this is requiring internal coordination, obviously, within the European Commission. But what we very clearly see as well, it requires quite a lot of coordination also within the member states themselves. And we have seen also this afternoon various actors being mentioned, the customs, for instance, in Germany, labor inspectors, the social security institutions, all kind of different, the social partners, of course, all kind of different actors and institutions that are dealing with their part, let's say, of this big building, but not always necessarily, let's say, being aware of each other's activities or connected indeed. So I think this is really a big challenge, and also where we as a European Commission can play a role. And you mentioned it already, Giuseppe, especially in terms of exchanging of information. I think the things that we were speaking about today are and we have discussed that also several times with, for instance, the social partners in the construction sector, are first and foremost bottom-up exercise, bottom-up initiatives. So they come out of the national context, sometimes even regional or even city. We are all quite familiar, for instance, with the activities of the city of Copenhagen, for instance, with their cards. And so this is really a bottom-up exercise. And that makes it also for us more something where we would facilitate the exchanges rather than taking the lead initiative. That being said, once again, there are different developments, and the word interoperability was already mentioned. I think what we need to look at together with all the actors involved is that where they develop their activities, and especially where they get into digitalization, to try to ensure that this is done in such a way which ultimately does not make it more difficult to also get some interoperability. And this is, of course, something that is maybe on the further horizon, but now currently the cards are indeed operating mostly at this local, regional or national level. But maybe at some stage we get into a situation where the cards will be carried with the person, or the wallets or whatever it will be carried with the person to another country, and that will require a certain interoperability. So something that we definitely need to keep an eye on, and that's again which makes it so important to be aware of the things that everybody is working on, and try to ensure that we do not get into a situation where everybody in his or her own corner has developed something, and then we have to say, sorry, you have to do it all over again, because otherwise we will not be able to interconnect. That's very quickly said how I see it with regard to what we discussed this afternoon on the area of digitalization of social security coordination. We, of course, want to take it a step further, including at the European level. And there we have the pilot project on ESPAS. Maybe I say a few words on this because it is still connected, of course. We have been working in particular with the Italian institution INPS over the past 1.5 years on this pilot project. We are now at a stage where we want to test further also technically this solution, because it's a pilot project, and that's done with a purpose, because we do not want to jump into solutions without having tested it technically, but also in terms of checking the commitment by the member states to actually implement something, because in the end it will be for them to implement and also to invest in it. So for that we have been looking for partners in the different countries. And on that front, we have a new development here, and that is the fact that around 12 countries have now decided to apply for funding under the Digital Euro program. And in case this consortium is selected, they would take further the ESPAS project, continuing to look into indeed the verification of the PDA1. So very quickly, maybe just for those who don't know, the ESPAS is really kind of giving the missing link or adding the extra components to what we have currently with ESSI. ESSI is about the exchange between the social security institutions, but we did not address the interaction between the worker and the inspector, for instance, just to stay within the PDA1. So here the worker would be able to show, let's call it a QR code. This is the solution that we are currently working on, the QR code within the wallet. The inspector will be able to read it and then see whether the PDA1 is indeed a valid one, and also whether it is one that is reflecting the actual situation of that worker. So there will be a real-time verification, which is of course currently not the case. That is what we are looking at. And the other point, which is maybe less of the attention of this meeting, is that the member states will also look in the European health insurance card, which of course many more people carry with them than only the workers within the construction sector. So maybe a last word on that. Sorry for being a little bit long, but it may be of interest to you. We have the Commission has adopted its work program for next year last week. And in that work program, there's indeed also a sentence on an initiative that we will take next year in the 3rd quarter related to digitalization, including on the European Social Security Pass. So that again will also be for us an opportunity not only to take stock of what has happened so far with the European Social Security Pass, but also have a more general discussion on digitalization. And of course, once again, projects like this one, they provide with very precious information also on that front. Sorry for having been a bit long.
No problem, Raymond, and thank you very much, because you also touched several points of interest, including also how these digital tools can foster coordination between social security coordination between member states. I've seen that also we are actually running a bit out of time, so I'll proceed a bit quickly. And I would like now, of course, to move to you, Bart. And first of all, Bart, I'll try to touch the most important points, because also your introduction was very, very interesting and touched most important points. First of all, considering your Belgian perspective, we know that in Belgium there were several forms of digital tools to tackle irregularities at work. So I would like to, in case if you have to mention a few examples, and also to provide your point of view on the opportunities and limits, as you said before, on the digitalization, this process of digitalization. And also this is also a point that was touched by Mark von Engeland, that was the strategic data mining. And I would like to also to remember the data mentalist tool. And about this point, I would like to ask you, what do you think about the use of digital intelligence and algorithms to support the work of inspectorates at national level. And about this point, also, if you using your second hat of the European Labour Authority, you can also flag any best practice from the ELA point of view. I know that huge topic, but I leave the floor to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, once you're started with Lego, you cannot stop immediately. So there's a lot of questions. I try to be brief because we have a lot of things in Belgium on the national level, and it's very interesting to hear from Mr. Maas that, of course, the principle of subsidiarity is very important, but then again, it has to be within the framework of the European Commission. And sometimes we saw during the different initiatives or tools that we made in Belgium that sometimes we had some problems with the Commission about the legal framework. And speaking as an inspector, it's sometimes, and as a former advisor, it's sometimes a little bit frustrating because on the one hand, there are magnificent tools to tackle undeclared work or social fraud. And on the other hand, we noticed during the period that we have then the difficulties with the legal framework. So it's balancing. It's also related to privacy and so on. So it's a combination of things. First of all, in the construction sector, what we see one of the most challenging things is the supply chain, the chain of subcontracting within the construction sector. And that's one of the biggest problems that we had during the more than 10 year of period in Belgium. So what we set up is, in fact, different tools. Mark van Engelen already named a couple of them. But for instance, Dimona, it's a prior notification, like another country already mentioned. I'll rephrase it, or otherwise you have to have a prior notification, otherwise you can't detect anything. So prior notification, Dimona, before you start working, you have to declare the people, the workers in a system, and then it's in another tool, the MFA. I will not go in detail. We have the salaries, we have the contributions, and so on and so on. But of course, our famous bird, Limosa, it's a bird, actually it's a bird, but it's a tool. It's where posted workers should be declared wherever they come from. And it's a very handy tool, but then again, we saw that it was the Commission said, yes, but in some of your sectors, you can't use it because it's double up with another tool, and so on and so on. A third tool, and this is a very important tool, related to the subcontracting is the checking at work system. And checking at work is also a little bit like other countries mentioned today, that before you enter a construction yard, you have to be declared. So a notification system, again, and that's why the Commission also made an infringement procedure, I believe, in this checking at work. This is very handy because we know in advance where people should be, from which company they work, for which subcontractor, and so on. But then again, what the difficulties or the challenge is that we don't have checking at work out. So we know who's in, but we don't know who's out. Why? Because as we have a culture of doing things together with the social partners and with the social inspectorates. It was a tripartite negotiation, and we didn't receive an agreement on a notification out. So perhaps in the near future, this can change, but it's a balanced approach, pragmatic, and so on. So this is a couple of things about, we have new tools now, my digital assistant. It's related to the inspector, where we can see where we add in an app system, immediately what we see, and we are using the different databases already mentioned, Dimona, Limosa, all in one app. So it's very handy for the inspector. It's online. You can give immediately results in our database. So this is, of course, a very important tool for us as an inspectorate. On the other hand, challenge or risks perhaps is, what are we going to do with those data? Because I already mentioned, it's about enforcement, because I'm related to the enforcement service. It's related to enforcement, and enforcement should be done not by the machine, but by the inspector. So it must stay a tool. If you're using it to as an enforcement service, you can't let the computer, artificial intelligence, and so on. They can make presumptions, but they cannot decide. This must stay on the initiative of the inspectorate, not by the machine itself. And as we all know, in Holland, it was a very important issue. Artificial intelligence and data mining, they used it so-called for ethnic profiling. Of course, this cannot be done, and the government fell down, so tumbled down. So I believe that's one of the most important things. Use the business knowledge from the inspectors or the social partners. We are trying to set up the things up together with Mark van Engeland, with Constructief, with the social partners. By using their knowledge, they are doing the same by using our data and try to do data mining themselves. We bring them together and we try to have something that is useful on the ground for them and for us. And it's all about rights, related to rights, of course, also. But it's not the idea that strategic data mining could lead to a world where the Lego bricks themselves are going to decide what is going to happen or what is not going to happen. Of course, on the European level within the ELA, there's a lot of things going on. I will be brief because otherwise we don't have the time to discuss perhaps. But for instance, already mentioned the social ID cards within the ELA next year, platform and declared work. We will have a seminar specific on the social ID cards. I believe together with the Commission, of course. ELA is also Commission, and I believe also with the social partners. It will be in the subcontracting things, and of course, then we are talking about the construction sector. There's also, in the perspective of strategic objective on mutual learning, there will be a seminar also on undeclared work in the construction sector next year. So the construction sector will be highlighted in the program of the ELA as such. Also very important, subcontracting systems is related also to what I believe the government should set the example. And within that, the public procurement laws are very important. So ELA is also investing in this and try to build up more knowledge and using the public procurement laws on national level. Of course, there's a European law, of course, also. By using the public procurement possibilities that are foreseen. Of course, ELA is now setting up joint and concerted actions within different sectors. What are joint and concerted inspections? The word themselves said it. We are conducting on the Belgian territory together with, for instance, with the Portuguese ACT. They already came to us. The ACT, the labor law from Portugal, together we are conducting inspections in Belgium, or we are doing at the same time, they in Portugal or in Belgium, and in Belgium. So this means this gives an added value. But of course, what we see is that we learn from each other. We see the tools and the techniques that they have, for instance, in Portugal or in Spain, and they see it otherwise in Belgium, and we learn from each other. This is also one of the perspectives or the important things that should be done by ELA and the platform and declared work. And I believe this is very prospective. Possible solutions about subcontracting and all what's related is mentioned also by, I believe, Spain. invest in trust, invest in cooperation. I believe this initiative is also related to this. Invest in, we are from the inspection side, and together we are here. We are trying to invest and to raise awareness. For instance, what we learned in the platform and declared work, there could be a code of conduct by using blacklists or whitelists. There are countries that have that. There are others that don't have this, and there are reasons for that. There are cultural reasons, legal reasons, and so on. Already mentioned public procurement, but also what we see in some countries, you already are using digitalization as a strategic instrument by doing risk analysis. And in fact, the opportunities by digitalization is that you can detect more rapidly things, you can predict anomalies or fraud or abusing of rights, try to predict. You can try to prevent by using digitalization. And of course, you can use them to control, to inspect on the field. But most important, you can also use this to build up trust, because if the rights of the people or the employers, due to the digitalization, are clear, transparent, then you build also trust for your system and for your country and also for Europe. And I think this is also very important as a government institution, that you see that digitalization can give added value also on this level. Of course, I can talk a lot of things. We use digitalization in a very famous case in Belgium, the Borealis case. Mark, you know it, where we saw a lot of abuses on human trafficking. So you can detect rapidly, but sometimes you cannot prevent them. And I believe the enforcement thing, prevention, detection, controls, sanctioning, and each of these phases, you can use digital instruments. And I think that we should more invest in those tools. But then again, principle of subsidiarity is important. And then again, it's highly costly. It takes time. Rome isn't built in one day. It's everybody knows it, but start slowly, pragmatic, and that's what we're doing in the platform on declared work, learning from each other by using staff exchange, mutual assistance programs, best practice toolkits, and so on and so on. So hopefully, this was
that was a very comprehensive reply. Can you hear me? Actually, yeah. Thank you very much. I also know that Raymond should leave. So Raymond, thank you very much for your participation and input. It was very, very precious to us. So also I would like to apologize to you, Bart and Raymond, for this final rush in the panel, but luckily we were able to touch every relevant point. So really, thank you very much for your input. I also received the via libera from my colleague Feliciano, who wanted to close the event to jump directly to the conclusions. And at this proposal, I would like also to thank all the speakers that presented the tools this afternoon. So thank you very much to everyone. And I would like also to flag you future initiatives, like the one, the event of 17 November on information on job advertisements, as well as another EMEcs workshop on 30 November that will aim to analyze and comment on the project toolkit, as well as on draft recommendations. Feliciano, if you want to add something else, please take the floor. Otherwise, we can close the meeting.
Thanks, Giuseppe. No, just to recall the event on the 17th, where we will actually discuss with inspector, researcher, and stakeholders on the interim result of our analysis on job advertisement, and this way try to elaborate some policy recommendation exactly on what Bart was saying, so on how to prevent actually irregularities acting on the process of recruitment of workers online.
Thank you very much, Feliciano. So unless there are no further comments for other participants, I think we can close this meeting. Thank you again for your participation. Apologize for the delay, and we'll keep you informed about next steps. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.